Ocean Story is with you, and I have new stories that touch me. When I turned 24, a momentous event occurred in my mother's life. The birth of her second child, my sister, now 19. We are united not only by blood, but also by the fact that both our fathers left us uninvolved in our childhood. With the birth of my sister, the world around me was involuntarily transformed. She came into this world prematurely, unleashing a wave of worry and anxiety on our family. This moment was a turning point not only for her, but also for our mother, who, in an effort to protect her newborn daughter, was no longer the same mom to me that she had been before. The time when my sister was struggling for her health in the hospital was marked by a series of hand-to-hand transitions for me, from friends to relatives, sometimes even to complete strangers who temporarily became my family. The unpredictability of my situation, when I did not know to whom I would be passed on, left a trace of uncertainty and loneliness in my soul. My sister, while in the ICU, became one of the youngest patients in the hospital whose survival seemed like a miracle. Every day of her life was filled with new complications, requiring not only medical intervention, but also the tireless presence of her mother next to her crib. Numerous surgeries, treatments, days and nights waiting for improvement. All this became the norm for our mother, who was like a shield protecting my sister from all adversity. Even coming home did not mark a reunion with my mother for me. My sister and her needs remained the center of her attention, and I, even under the same roof, felt isolated, deprived of the warmth and care that used to bind me to my mother. Then, when fate once again brought its weight upon our family, my 2-year-old sister was diagnosed with leukemia. This moment turned our lives into an endless marathon between home and the hospital, leaving me a lonely witness to their absence. At the age of 10, I already knew my mother didn't mind my loneliness as she fought for my sister's life. My own struggle, hidden behind the walls of the school where teachers detected signs of dyslexia, went unnoticed. My mother, consumed by her sister's treatment, lacked the time and energy to attend to my problems. Even when my sister beat cancer and her hospital visits became less frequent, nothing changed in our relationship. My mother continued to ignore my needs, devoting herself to taking care of my sister, making me a stranger in my own home. As a teenager, I found refuge and understanding in my girlfriend's family, where I felt needed and important. My mother seemed indifferent to my absence, only allowing me to return for another batch of clothes or belongings. When I turned 18, I left home for good and was finally diagnosed with dyslexia, which became a symbol of my unresolved problems. Years later, the gap between me, my mother, and my sister seems insurmountable. I don't blame my sister for our missing connections. The circumstances of our youth deprived us of the opportunity to get to know each other. The walls erected between us were not her fault. She is as much a stranger to me as I am to her. The moment my mother, facing health problems, came to me for help, she called me to action, reminding me of the ties of kinship and the responsibilities she felt I should fulfill. She argued that the sister deserved my attention and accused me of allegedly punishing the sister for her mere existence. My words in response were clear. The alienation that separates us is the result of her own actions. I reminded her that she had ceased to be my mom since I was 5, and that she had no moral right to demand my care after decades of ignoring my needs. Her accusations against me, in which she called me selfish and unconscious, only emphasized the depth of our divide. I asked her if she could recall a single moment when her concern was for my well-being, but only silence followed in response. The sarcasm of my words reflected more than frustration. It mirrored decades of loneliness and invisibility. My mother, suddenly aware of my existence in light of her own needs, saw no irony in my situation. The question of why the rest of the family did not come to her aid remained unanswered. What you have said is bitterly true. Your mother unfortunately left you lonely at a time when you needed her support and care the most. The neglect you experienced has left its indelible imprint on your heart and mind. If your sister is sincere in her desire to build a relationship with you, she will have to make a significant effort to do so, and it is important that she understands that no interference from your mother will be tolerated. Your sister may also be suffering the consequences of her mother's neglect, falling under her overprotective care, only when it is to the mother's advantage. This behavior of a mother seeking help solely in her own moments of need, without being met with gratitude, apology, or a desire to make things right, only confirms her self-centeredness. Your mother, faced with openly admitting her mistakes, may have chosen anger as a defensive response, hoping that your anger will mask her own pain. This mechanism is nothing more than an attempt to escape from the responsibility and problems she has created herself. It is important for you to convey to her that you are not blaming your sister for what happened. The real blame lies on the shoulders of your mother, who must realize the consequences of her actions. A mother who abdicates her responsibilities and abandons you has no right to demand your support or interfere in your life. Building a new relationship with your sister, if at all possible, should be on your terms without her involvement, giving you the opportunity to reconnect in a healthy and equitable way. Next story. Taking up digital portraiture more as a hobby than a profession, I never envisioned that my hobby would grow into something more. However, when my boyfriend first offered my services as a gift for one of our mutual friends, I felt a mixture of irritation and pride. Annoyance at the fact that he had put me in front of the fact, and pride that my art could be a special gift. This portrait I created turned out to be the beginning of a tradition that became my thing in our circle of friends. Over time, my portraits became a symbol of special moments, but I couldn't help but feel used because behind every such gift was my work, my effort and time, and my boyfriend was only taking credit for the idea. My silence, agreeing to do portraits without objection, may have been a mistake. I implied that he would use the gesture in moderation and in consideration of my feelings and business. However, the offer to create a portrait for his college friend as a wedding gift was a boiling point. This wasn't just another birthday party, it was an event that required a special approach and investment of time, and I realized that my patience and willingness to help was coming to an end. My boyfriend may have been acting with the best of intentions, but his lack of consideration for my feelings and unwillingness to ask my opinion directly before promising my involvement was embarrassing. Now, facing a new challenge, I realize it's time to make my boundaries clear and explain to him that my art and time are valuable and that I can't be an endless source of gifts for every milestone in our friends' lives without considering my own wants and needs. I was faced with an incredibly difficult situation when my boyfriend, without my knowledge or consent, promised a portrait for the wedding of someone I had never even crossed paths with. His incredible promise, made weeks before the event, was only revealed to me a few days before the wedding, putting me in an extremely awkward position. My reaction was immediate and harsh. I refused to be his personal portrait artist for free, especially when his motivation lay in wanting to save money while ignoring the cost of my time and effort. My boyfriend tried to justify himself by claiming that a customized portrait is a far more valuable and personal gift than any purchase, and that such work supposedly contributes to my portfolio and requires no financial outlay on his part at all. He insisted that my rare commissions are small as it is, ignoring the fact that I value my time more highly given my full-time employment in another field. He appealed to me to fulfill this last commission, assuring me that such situations would not happen again and that both of them, the bride and groom, were looking forward to this gift. But my response was unwavering. I refuse to participate in a portrait session for people I don't know and for whom I have no personal attachment. In the face of my refusal, my boyfriend was forced to approach other artists online, but time was playing against him and no one agreed to take on the job on such a tight deadline. My boyfriend's attempt to use an AI-based image generator as an alternative to my manual labor was a true insult to my art and skill. This move not only showed his unwillingness to appreciate art in its true light, but also made my work look like something that could be mindlessly replaced by a machine. His request that I take on this project at the last minute and his promise to compensate me on my birthday only added salt to the wound, especially after he demonstrated such a clear underestimation of my talent. My rejection in this situation wasn't just a reaction to his poor planning or an assumption that I would agree to his terms. It was a statement about my respect for my own work and time. If he truly valued me and my art, he would have approached the matter with a premeditated plan, not an attempt to force me to agree under last-minute pressure. It seems my boyfriend was counting on my inability to say no, using tactics that would make me feel obligated. However, he needs to realize that the responsibility for choosing a gift and managing his expectations rests solely with him. His failure to prepare and consider alternatives should not become my burden. This episode was an occasion for me to seriously reflect on our relationship and how often my efforts and gifts have been taken for granted. Perhaps it's time to reevaluate how often these situations happen and discuss how this behavior affects both of us. If my boyfriend isn't willing to recognize the true value of my contributions to our relationship and will continue to ignore my feelings, it may be time to rethink our future together. Calculating the cost of all the portraits done at his request and charging him is not only a way to show the financial side of my work, but also to emphasize that nothing in this world is truly free, especially when it comes to creativity and personal time. A story that really surprised me. After living with my husband for 3 years and experiencing a marriage of just over a year in that time, our family life was enriched by the arrival of our firstborn a few months ago. My husband, an only child in a family where the father was absent and the relationship with his mother was never warm and close, became a father. He and I met with coldness from my mother-in-law, with whom we had never developed a relationship. The story of our disagreement with her began almost immediately after the birth of our son, when, in an effort to protect his first moments from prying eyes, we made the decision to avoid unnecessary publicity and photography. However, despite our desire to keep these moments within a tight family circle, my mother-in-law, unable to resist the urge to immortalize the meeting with her grandson, turned our first visit to the NICU into a photo shoot without our consent. This was a source of deep irritation for me, because I had dreamed that the first pictures of our son would be taken in a calmer and warmer atmosphere, not under the gaze of a camera. The next day, despite my tiredness and lack of sleep, I agreed to my mother-in-law's visit, wanting to give her a chance to see her grandson, now in the safety of our embrace. Her arrival was cautiously anticipated, given our previous experiences and the tensions that had developed between us because of our differing views on personal boundaries and the privacy of such important life moments. In the moments when my mother-in-law decided to arbitrarily turn our baby's first hospital visit into a photo shoot, I minimally interacted with her in an effort to remain calm, seeking solace in the solitude of being alone after she left. However, when she called my husband, the accusations and screams that rang through the phone shattered the last vestige of my patience. Her words, full of anger and accusations towards me, were deeply wounding to me. She claimed that her intentions to take the photos were purely out of good faith, not realizing that by doing so, she had violated our clearly defined boundaries. This incident was the final straw for me, reaffirming the need to distance myself from my mother-in-law and focus on the well-being of my own family. My husband, realizing the depth of what had happened, supported my decision. We both agreed that it was important to stand up for our boundaries and priorities in order to preserve our family comfort and peace of mind. Turning to the events of a week and a half ago, my husband and son became ill, leaving me anxious and tired from sleepless nights and caring for them. In my absence from home, due to the need to care for my loved ones, I felt the weight of the responsibility resting on my shoulders and the importance of the support we have to give each other in times like these. While running daily errands and taking care of grocery shopping, I encountered unwanted attention from my mother-in-law who, despite our constant refusals, continued to offer her help. Her insistence, especially at times when my husband and I were trying to find calm in the turbulent sea of parenting, seemed particularly off-putting. Returning home turned into a new challenge when my attempt to find even brief peace was violently disrupted by her unexpected appearance. Amidst the day's screams and lack of sleep, the knock on the door and the unrestrained barking of the dog that woke my son was the last straw. Her showing up on the doorstep with a rotisserie chicken, a trash can and laundry detergent, against our clearly expressed wishes, seemed to me the height of disrespect for our boundaries and desires. At that moment, I realized it was time to put an end to this series of uninvited intrusions into our family life. I expressed my displeasure to her, emphasizing that what she was doing was not help, but an intrusion that we could not and would not tolerate. My decision to tell her that anything she tries to impose on us in the future will be immediately returned was a gesture to protect our family tranquility and autonomy. Her response, full of anger and resentment, promising never to come or communicate with us again, was perhaps the unexpected outcome of this confrontation, but also a clear sign that setting boundaries sometimes requires decisive action. In the midst of an emotional storm, flying the banners of my independence and setting boundaries, I made a decision, like the captain of my ship on a stormy sea, not to open the door to unexpected guests in order to protect my peace and tranquility. It was not just an act of self-defense, but a sign that it was time to teach my mother-in-law to respect our space and our decisions. My actions, though they may seem extreme, were driven by the need to keep my sanity and focus on the well-being of my family. Ending the endless cycle of unannounced visits, deciding not to answer the phone without expecting guests, was a way for me to regain control of my own life. During this turbulent period, when each day is filled with worries about a newborn and illnesses in the family, my desire to have a clear circle became my refuge from the daily chaos. However, when my mother-in-law, despite our requests, decided to show up once again with unsolicited gifts, her actions caused a storm of resentment in me. My words may have sounded too harsh, but they were an echo of fatigue and a desire to protect our young family from unwanted interference. My response to her actions caused a rupture, making me think about the fine line between protecting personal space and unnecessary rudeness. I realized there are good intentions behind my mother-in-law's attempts to help, remembering her own difficult journey of raising her son alone. Her desire to create memories for us and ease our care may have come from the heart, but my perception has been clouded by current circumstances and misunderstandings. My next story. In my 48th year, after the children were gone, I, the primary breadwinner in the family, took over household duties so that my wife Anne, 47, could enjoy more personal time. Anne, having become a homemaker after our youngest left, expressed a desire to step away from household chores. So I began cooking, cleaning, and doing the heavy lifting while continuing to work full-time. Despite my efforts, Anne became more aggressive, criticizing me in front of the children for allegedly not taking enough care of the house. My fatigue peaked as I sought solitude in the car, trying to avoid household tasks. However, when Anne left to go out with friends, leaving me alone with undone chores, I faced another challenge, spending 30 minutes looking for car keys that were out of place. Waking Anne up for help, I received only an irritated refusal. I ended up finding what I was looking for in her purse, and so I was late for work. Today, when I got home, I faced her anger for invading her personal space, for my digging through her purse. I tried to explain that she told me to find the keys herself, but she wouldn't let me finish, claiming that I should have realized it's best not to go through her things. She had her rights, which I was obliged to respect. She insisted that I should have waited for her to wake up before asking her to find the keys herself, even though she told me she didn't care if I was late for work. The moment I lost my composure, her words were, "We don't need that stupid rabbit anymore." I responded by telling her what I thought. She's selfish and only entitled because of my efforts. Last year was too easy for her, and if she wants to see what it's like to owe me, let her go back to work or take on all the housework she dumped on me. She was shocked by my outburst, and the rest of the night passed in silence. She locked herself in our bedroom and wouldn't come out. I shared what had happened with our children. My daughter was supportive, and my son suggested that I had been too harsh in questioning her years of labor as a homemaker. They promised to take turns talking to Anna, but now I wondered if I had overreacted by lashing out at her over her flippant attitude. Our daughter suggested couples therapy and said she would discuss it with Anne. I'm more than willing to try it because today's incident made me think about my exhaustion from my current lifestyle. Noticing the concern in my wife's eyes, I realized that our time together is marred by mystery. It could be that her soul was being tormented by a midlife crisis or an affair unknown to me. My intrusion into her space revealed not just discontent, but a deep inner conflict, a desire for change suppressed for the sake of the children. Now that the children are adults, she no longer seems to see the point of previous concessions, seeking a new life. Our marriage of 23 years was always based on mutual trust. We shared personal belongings and information freely. Her possible desire for divorce, however, makes me rethink our mutual understanding. It is a warning that our shared future is on the brink, and it is time to seek a path to reconciliation or prepare for the inevitable breakup. Therapy is presented as a critical step to try to reconnect, an opportunity to gain understanding, and perhaps save our union. Because the road to finding a good attorney and waiting for court proceedings seems like a burden too heavy, I am preparing for future challenges, including child support. Your support and advice, like signs of light in the darkness, have helped me through these difficult hours filled with contemplation of proposed paths, whether good or ominous. In our recent conversation, she apologized for her words, and I in turn apologized for my outburst of anger. An offer of marriage counseling came from our daughter, which Anne would find helpful. She asked for an evening alone, suggesting we resume our dialogue tomorrow. So, tomorrow I'll put everything on hold and take the day off work so we can work out our problems together. My trust in Anne has not wavered. I refuse to believe that she is unfaithful, and I stand firmly on this position, not allowing doubts to destroy my faith in our union. Your help and understanding have been a stronghold for me, for which I am eternally grateful.